A number of years ago, I was interviewed on CBC radio, and it was being broadcast across the province. And they introduced me as Peter Sinclair, the Executive Director of Loaves and Fishes Food Bank, a food bank that is named after the parable that we read in the Gospels. And my mind started racing. I'm on live radio across the province, and I want to jump in there and go, it's not a parable. It was a miracle that Jesus performed. I made the quick decision in that moment, though, that was not the right move to get into that point of theology with the person who was there to just ask me some questions about the work of Loaves and Fishes. But I think it is fundamental to understanding the work that Loaves and Fishes Food Bank does across Vancouver Island to see that it is not a parable that Jesus told. It was a miracle that he performed. A miracle that he performed some 2,000 years ago, but a miracle he continues to perform today. Now, one of the most common questions I get about Loaves and Fishes is, what's with the name? And it comes from one of two places. One, where people know very clearly what it is referring to, and they don't like that there is a Christian organization serving the community. But then there are other people who have no idea why you would name your food bank Loaves and Fishes Food Bank. Like, why not Burgers and Fries Food Bank? Or Tomatoes and Pickles, or Ketchup and Mustard. Like, it doesn't make any sense for them. So to address both of those reasons, when people ask why the name Loaves and Fishes, I direct them to the passage in Scripture. Direct them to it and share with them the miracle that Jesus is performing today. Now I'm going to read to you from John chapter 6, and what is interesting about this miracle is it is the only miracle that is recorded in all four Gospels. So there's many miracles recorded, but this is the only one that appears in all four. And I've selected from John because there's one detail in this that I find really cool, and I'll point that out. See if you can hear the unique piece that John, or one of the unique pieces that John adds. So I'm reading from John chapter 6, beginning at verse 1. After this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is in the Sea of Tiberias. And a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes then, and seeing a large crowd was coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where do we buy bread so that all these people may eat?" He said this to test them, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered, 200 denarii would not be enough bread for each one of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a boy here who has 5 loaves and 2 fish, but what are they for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in that place, so the men sat down, and there were about 5,000 in number. Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who has come into the world." There is a problem. There's 5,000 men, plus women and children, thousands and thousands of people who need something to eat. This is a problem that when we look at it, it is fundamentally about scarcity. There is not enough. Jesus tests them, and what is the disciples' answer? All we have is these 5 loaves and these 2 fish. But look at that detail that is included there. 5 loaves and 2 fish. How is it that those 5 loaves and 2 fish are there? A little boy brings it to them. A child brings what is there. What does Jesus do in this moment? Does he go, yeah, you're right, all we have are 5 loaves and 2 fish? No. He gives thanks because Jesus knows there is more than those 5 loaves and 2 fish. His disciples have counted to 7. 5 loaves, 2 fish. One of my favorite commentators has pointed out that Jesus is teaching the disciples to count to 8. 5 loaves, 2 fish, 1 Jesus. What does Jesus do in this moment? He does not say, yes, you're absolutely right, there's not enough. What are we going to do? Yes, let's send the people away. He gives thanks for what they have. And from that thanks, there is a tremendous blessing that goes out. There is truly enough food for everyone to eat. Now, the passage does not tell us where the food physically came from, but we are told that there is enough. When we read in the other accounts of this miracle, there is another detail that is of critical importance. There is enough food, but it does not suddenly appear in people's hands. It is given to the disciples, and what do? They go out into the crowd to distribute it. So imagine a crowd of thousands of people. Jesus has made sure that there is enough food to eat. But he is relying on the disciples to go out and make sure that that food actually gets to the people who need it. This is the miracle that we see happening at Loaves and Fishes every single day. So often, food banking is defined by scarcity. Pretty well every week, you can see a newspaper article or a video clip or something referring to the massive demand that food banks are experiencing. You'll see a story about how the shelves are empty. It is a story of continued scarcity. We are telling a different story. We are telling a different story because we know that Jesus is performing this miracle today. You may say, well, how? Sure, you can say that. Well, I want to share with you how we see that miracle happening every day. And I want to share with you how we see that miracle working out in the future. And I'm going to do that by sharing with you the 4 goals that we as an organization have. The 4 goals that inform where we are going. First, we want to ensure that there is consistent, reliable, 7-day-a-week food recovery in every major grocery store on Vancouver Island. So you've heard of the huge amount of food waste that we generate in the Western world. We have, as a food bank, have discovered a way to access that abundance. We started in 2012 by partnering with one grocery store where we picked up all the food that they were throwing out. We bring that food back to our facility, we sort it to its highest and best use. So that good food goes to people, the food that is not so good we make available to farm animals, the food that the farmers won't take we compost, and as a last resort, it goes to the landfill. You've seen those videos of dumpsters filled with food. We provide a solution to that. We started with one store. We have now grown it to over 35 stores from Ladysmith, Chemainus, Nanaimo, Nanoose, Parksville, Port Alberni, Comox Valley, Port McNeill, and Port Hardy. We want to ensure that every major grocery store on Vancouver Island has a consistent, reliable pickup of all of that food that is being thrown out. Because we have a system that works. 2011, before we launched this program, we sourced and distributed about $800,000 worth of food. Last year, $9 million worth of food. This year, we're anticipating over $10 million worth of food. This is not a scarcity problem. This is a problem of abundance. When Jesus first performed this miracle, it was a problem of abundance. There was enough food. There was so much food that they actually had to go out and collect the extra. Jesus ran the first food recovery program. He sent the disciples out to collect that food that hadn't been consumed. He didn't want it wasted. They needed to be good stewards of what was provided. So that's our first goal. Our second goal is we want to always be positioned to receive and distribute large volume donations from Vancouver Island and beyond. And this is a variation of the first one in that it is tapping into the abundance of food that is out there. Except instead of going after it at the retail level, we go after it at the wholesale level, whether that be regionally, provincially, or nationally. There are massive volumes of food out there. Let me share with you a couple of examples. Earlier this year, we got 13 pallets of ice cream that came out of Portland, Oregon. Why is it down in Portland, Oregon? Why is it being thrown out? We don't know. We just said we'll take it. There were 300 pallets of nacho chips in a warehouse in Delta. We got 90 of those pallets. You may remember when COVID hit, all the restaurants got closed down. Well, they weren't making omelets anymore in the morning for breakfast, but the chickens kept laying. We were getting between 6,000 and 9,000 dozen eggs every single week. Now, if you are going to tap into these volumes of food, you need a facility that can handle that. You don't handle 90 pallets of nacho chips out of your church cupboard. I mention that because Loaves and Fishes started in 2 local churches with congregations that did the right thing and served their community. But we have grown beyond that. But we remember where we came from. To handle that kind of volume, we need a larger facility. Currently, we operate out of a 6,000 square foot warehouse down on Fry Street. When we moved in there in 2017, we couldn't believe how big it was. We thought, there is no way that we will ever fill this up. And we actually looked at options to rent out part of the space to other nonprofits. We are bursting at the seams in that facility. And so in 2020, we began looking for an alternate location, a bigger facility for us to use. And in 2021, we found a piece of property on East Wellington Road. We negotiated a purchase agreement for that for $1.3 million, having no money to pay for it. But we believe in a God who does good and amazing things. So we went to Nanaimo City Council and we asked them for just over $900,000 to help us buy that. They responded and said, no, we won't give you the money, but if you assign the purchase agreement to us, we will buy the land and we will lease it back to you. Oh, interesting. How much? Well, we were thinking $10 for 30 years. That's pretty good. We pushed back a little bit though, and we said, well, there's actually $100,000 worth of expenses to get the new road built that goes beside it, and we've reached an agreement with the developer behind us to contribute $100,000. So if you're going to own the property, you should pay the $100,000. I said, yep, we'll do that. So the city of Nanaimo contributes $1.4 million to provide land for Loaves and Fishes to build this new warehouse on. Now, if you're going to build a facility on 1.3 acres, it's going to be pretty big, and there's going to be some design that goes into it. Fortunately, the Regional District of Nanaimo came along as a partner, and they provided $273,000 to help with the design and development costs. Now we had a building. We knew what it was going to look like. That building's expensive to build. So we went to the provincial government, and we asked them for, at the time, I think it was about $12 million. And they came back and said, no, we won't give you 12 million, but we will give you 7. Would you like $7 million? We said, yes, we would love $7 million. So we took $7 million. We wanted to get started on the project, but these things take time and you need to have the money. So we worked with the federal government. And we are still working with the federal government. Our ask now of the federal government is for $7.2 million. We are working with a lobbyist to make that happen. And as you may know, the Federal Liberal Caucus was here in Nanaimo back at the beginning of September. And we were trying to get a meeting with Justin Trudeau and Minister Sean Fraser to discuss our ask with them. Sean Fraser was not in Nanaimo because of surgery that he had the week before, and we were told that Justin Trudeau did not have time, which is understandable, he's busy. Justin Trudeau, however, did have time to come to the Nanaimo Track Club and say hi and encourage the kids, in part because Ethan Katzberg was a member of the Nanaimo Track Club. Well, guess who coaches at the Nanaimo Track Club? And guess who just loves barging in and asking for money? So after things were winding down, I went and spoke to Justin Trudeau and asked him for $7.2 million. What was fascinating is as I shared our story, he went from polite interest and encouragement and thankfulness for the work that food banks do to zeroing in once he realized that we had something very specific and was shovel ready. The fact that we had the support of 3 levels of the government, he realized the federal government needs to be a part of it. So we remain hopeful that they will come through. Now this week, we anticipate a building permit being issued. And it is our intention to begin building immediately. If you drive by that site, you will actually see an excavator out front. That excavator is ready to go. You think, okay, you're heading out to build this facility and you don't have all the money. We have secured a construction loan for $5.7 million to ensure that we can complete the actual structure. We won't have all the equipment in it that we need, but we will make sure that we get the structure. So we are anticipating within 12 months from now, we will have that new facility that will help us access that abundance of food that is out there. 24,000 square feet with about 3,500 square feet of office space. So a significant increase in terms of space available. Now those 2 goals focus on the abundance and accessing that food that is out there. But that food needs to actually get out to people in need who can use it. And so there are two main ways that Loaves and Fishes does this. And this brings us to our next two goals. We want to ensure that every community that needs a Loaves and Fishes free food market has it. So back in 2007, Loaves and Fishes opened its first market that was not based out of our facility at Farquhar. We opened a market at Brechin United Church. When we look back at our history, this was a pivotal moment for us because it was the first time that we scaled up our operations. We went from one location where people could access food to 2 locations. That worked really well. And so over the years, we consistently increased the number of locations that people can access food. And I can tell you now, today, we operate in 11 different locations at 13 different times here in Nanaimo. We have free food markets on each day of the week. We have markets that are open in the morning. We have markets that are open in the afternoon. We have markets that are open in the evening. These are markets. These are places where people choose the food that they go home with. So this is not, here's your bag of food, hope you like it. It's, this is the food we have available. Take your choice of what you would like. I have toured food banks across this country and seen their operations. I am biased, but I have not seen a system that delivers as good service and is scalable. I've seen some systems that are better than what we do, but they operate in one location. They don't operate in 11 different locations in one city. We want to ensure that every community that needs a Loaves and Fishes free food market has it. And so in 2019, when we were invited to provide food bank services in Port Hardy, that's exactly what we did. In 2023, we were approached by a food bank on the North Island that was based in Port Hardy 2, the Port Hardy Harvest Food Bank. They saw what we were doing, and they said, we would like to give to you all of our operations, all of our equipment, so that you can run your free food market system with what we have. So in the summer of 2023, we got a warehouse facility in Port Hardy and another location to operate a free food market. This is how we started our food recovery efforts on northern Vancouver Island. And so when I said that we're providing 7-day-a-week food recovery in these grocery stores, those ones on northern Vancouver Island and Port Hardy and Port McNeill, they're done out of our facility in Port Hardy. Now, when we acquired the Port Hardy Harvest Food Bank, we also got their operations in Ross, Swantula, and Port Alice. Now, these are places that we deliver pre-made hampers to, because that is the system that is in place, but we are working to change that. And the next one, or the place that will change first, is in Port Alice. And so we have met with the church community out there, and we are looking at operating a free food market there in Port Alice in the coming months. So that goal of ensuring that every community that needs a Loaves and Fishes free food market is central to so much of what we do. And as we look across at all the communities across Vancouver Island, we see a consistent need for what we have to offer. Now, our fourth, but I won't say final goal, but it's the goal that I will finish up with today, is we want to ensure that every charitable organization on Vancouver Island has the food they need to thrive. So we have this system that accesses massive volumes of food. A system that can accept it, a system that can sort that food, and a system that ultimately needs to get that food out. And so we don't think it works best when you have all these smaller organizations collecting and sorting food. We want to centralize that collection of that food so that there can be more for everyone. I'll give you an example of how that works. We're in pick up food from grocery stores in Ladysmith. A few months ago, or maybe a year ago, freezers went down there, and they needed to clear everything out of their freezers. There was simply too much food there in that one community in a short period of time for it to go out there. We collected that food, we brought it back, distributed it amongst agencies, not only here in Nanaimo, but across Vancouver Island. That is a far better solution than one agency picking it up there, using some of it, and then throwing most of it out. To deliver this amount of food to all of these nonprofits is incredibly challenging, and it requires an online ordering system. We have an online ordering system in place, but it's got many bugs. We are working through this because we want to have a system that these nonprofits can go in, see what's available, they can order that food, and they can have it delivered to them. And so what does that distribution look like? You can order it, but then it's got to get out. So we are building a distribution center, or distribution system to actually get this food out. You may know that on a monthly basis, we go out to remote communities to bring food to them. We just this last Friday, we were out to Tassus and Gold River. Why? Because we want every charitable organization on Vancouver Island to have the food they need to thrive. And if you're feeding people in Tassus, you need the food brought to you. And that's what we do. We also take food out to Zavalis on a monthly basis. We also get food out into remote communities like Rivers Inlet. Through a partnership with Helicopters Without Borders, we take food to the Port Hardy Airport, where their helicopters meet us, load the food onto the helicopter, and take it into these communities. It's super cool. They go in there to bring healthcare workers to provide healthcare services, and the extra freight space that they have on the helicopter, we can fill with food. We want to make sure that the abundance gets out. Now, just as Jesus made sure that there was enough food, we know that there is enough food right now. But Jesus used the disciples to go out and make sure that that food got to the people who need it. And so I've spoken about our operations, I've spoken about our logistics, but I have left one piece out, and that is the people. The people who make sure that the abundance that God has provided actually gets into the hands of the people who need it. And this is where we need volunteers. Without volunteers, Loaves and Fishes Food Bank falls apart. There is no Loaves and Fishes Food Bank. And so I am going to appeal to you. If you would like to participate in this miracle, if you would like to see firsthand that there is an abundance of food, that Jesus is making sure that people can have food to eat, I would invite you to volunteer with Loaves and Fishes Food Bank. Just this morning, I went and looked on our website to see the number of volunteer shifts that are available to be filled between now and the end of November. At just our Fry Street warehouse, there are 618 volunteer shifts that need to be filled. If you think you'd like to try it, go to our website, viloavesandfishes.org, and sign up for a shift. Pick one, come in. If you don't have a good time, if you don't think it was worth it, that's fine. You don't need to come back. But I bet you if you come and volunteer with us, you will have a good time. You will go, that was worth it. I liked being part of that miracle. Thank you for this opportunity. May God richly bless you as you seek to follow him and serve your community.